Hello, I'm Cheryl Hawkins. Welcome to Solutions, the series that highlights the incredible work that nonprofits do every day to help solve problems in our communities. Rebuilding Together Montgomery County is the name of the nonprofit organization we are highlighting on this edition of Solutions. The mission of Rebuilding Together Montgomery County is to repair homes, revitalize communities, and to rebuild lives. Their vision, safe homes and safe communities for everyone. Let's take a look at their story.
For more than 40 years, as a leading national nonprofit in safe and healthy housing, we've been bringing people together to rebuild homes. And so much more. We're rebuilding pride by repairing and rehabilitating the houses of veterans, people with disabilities, and low-income homeowners so they can remain our neighbors. We're rebuilding communities by strengthening their foundations. Because a neighborhood is more than just houses and streets. It's familiar faces, helping hands, and open arms. And we're rebuilding the future of our historic cities by renewing the hopes of the people who call them home. Our vision is a safe and healthy home for every person. With almost 100,000 volunteers, our local affiliates complete nearly 10,000 rebuild projects across the U.S. each year. And we hope you'll join us on the next one.
What a great story. Now I'm excited to learn more about this organization. So joining me in the studio to tell us more about Rebuilding Together Montgomery County is Matthew Saunders, Director of Program Services. Matt, welcome to Solutions.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. So it's my understanding that many years ago there was this need to help people repair their homes, people who could not necessarily afford to do it. And so the solution was addressed by your organization to help them do that. Tell me a little bit about the story. And is Rebuilding Together Montgomery County a local organization or a national one?
Yeah, so I'll take us back a little bit. So Rebuilding Together as a whole started in the 1970s, actually down in Texas, with some neighbors realizing that other neighbors in their community needed some assistance, and they got together one April and helped rebuild some homes. And that's sort of how the organization actually started, when they realized there was a need for this, and it became Christmas in April. And from there, that kind of need they realized could go throughout the entire U.S., that many communities needed that same thing, and it started as neighbors helping neighbors is really the root of where things started. And then once we got about to the 2000s, after it spread across the country, there was a change from Christmas in April, which was working just once a year with volunteers in April to help rebuild their communities, to realizing that there's such a need for this work that we had to be doing it year-round. So that's when the change happened to switch to Rebuilding Together. And so that's a nationwide organization, and then there's over 115 of us affiliates throughout local communities, started by local people usually in their community, aka back to the neighbors helping neighbors portion. So us ourselves, we're a local affiliate that helps Montgomery County, Maryland, and we were started back in 1990 by Jay Treadwell and Gordon Hawk, and the same thing that happened down in Texas, where they saw a need for this and they saw this happening throughout, and they realized that we need to start a Christmas in April here. Wow,
that's a great story. So do you all come together any time, so many of you throughout the country, to share what you're doing in the areas where you are?
Yeah, we do. So we have a national summit actually every year. It changes, but we have a summit where all the affiliates come together somewhere across the country year to year, and that way we can share best practices, best tips with each other, because everyone's working towards the same goal, right? Of helping to rebuild the communities that they are, and we share tips and best practices and things like that with each other across the country.
That's great. So what kind of programs and services do you offer?
So we basically offer what we call our one main program is safe and healthy housing. So basically you go into the safe and healthy housing program when you apply, And what that means is we look mainly at 25 different priorities throughout the home that go into safe and healthy housing, but essentially we'll do anything from repairing a roof to your HVAC system to maybe you're aging in place and you need accessibility work. So it's really a whole list, trying to look at homes holistically and understand when we go into the homes, working with the homeowners and the clients about what their needs are, how they're living, and then how do we make this a safer and healthier space for them.
And what constitutes a healthy house?
Yeah, so like a safer and healthier house, there's a few different main items I'd say we look at. Obviously, there's a long list of things we're going in, but the main items that we look at is we kind of start, if you think about it, outside, and then we move in. So we start with what would be called the envelope of the home. So we're looking, is there water intrusion? Is there pest intrusion coming in from the outside? Items like that, because if we're getting intrusion from the outside, then obviously it can cause damages inside the home. If we get water intrusion, we're looking at mold, asthma issues, and things like that. And then once we know that the outside is covered, we start to look inside. So how are they using the home? What's the air quality look like? Do we have really old carpets that could be causing some breathing issues? Are they able to traverse the home safely? Can they get up and down the stairs? Or maybe have they aged and now it's really hard to get in and out of a tub safely, because that's where a lot of accidents happen. So we can help with accessibility work. So again, it's going back to really like holistically looking at the home and figuring out how do we make this safer and healthier for our neighbors.
So what happens when you go into a home and you see a lot of things on this list that needs to be repaired? Can you do everything, or are you limited to how much you can do, or how does that work?
So unfortunately, we are limited. Usually what we have to say is we try to do as much as we can, but we can't do everything, right? And so our real focus is, when we're talking about safe and healthy homes, is our critical needs, right? So we don't do as much cosmetic items, but we're really like, what are the critical items in the home? So we'll assess the whole home, speak with the homeowner, and then kind of create a identified repair sheet, we call it, that lists all the items that are happening in the home, and then work with the homeowner and our contractors to identify the most critical items and at least try and knock out as much as we can from that list. Now we're rarely able to do everything, because often by the times we get to these homes, there's a lot of deferred maintenance. So we try to tackle as much as we can based on the grant funding we have.
And so who are the clients you serve? Who's eligible to get their home repaired by you?
Yeah, so the clients that we serve are basically their homeowners, right? So they have to own the home, and then the other main requirement is they're 50% or less of the area median income in Montgomery County. So how that shakes out in more basic terms is, I would say, over the years, on average, every year when we serve homeowners, it averages out to the typical household that we work with earning less than $30,000 a year. So you can imagine, especially in Montgomery County, if you have to pay your bills, put food on the table, pay for your mortgage, all sorts of other items that you just need to live, and then you've got other deferred maintenance and things around the house, it just doesn't make it on the list of items that happen, and that's where we hopefully come in.
That's great, because everything is going up and up and up. The cost of, oh my gosh, to go to the grocery store these days is crazy. So making repairs, that's not necessarily the first thing on your list. So how do your clients find you, or you find them? How do you get to the people that need your help? Yeah,
so multiple different ways. We do go out and find clients, so we're regularly at different tabling events throughout the community, at community centers, working with other community leaders as well, because a big portion is establishing trust in the communities we're working in, right, and make sure we're listening to them. So reaching out to maybe local community leaders throughout the county to establish trust and talk with those communities. And then on the flip side, I would say a lot of how people find us, we're with 311 in the county, as well as word of mouth, because typically once we've helped one neighbor in a community, word spreads, they tell someone across the street, like, hey, we were able to get this repair entirely free, like, please go apply. And it kind of will spread a little bit like wildfire in communities from there usually.
Yeah, that is such a great service that you all provide. I have a friend who actually had a massive stroke, and she's had those kind of services in her home. And she's so happy, they've made things easier for her, putting railings and a walk-in shower and all those kinds of things. So tell me a little bit about you. I think people who work for nonprofits are special people, because we're always in the mode of giving. So what is your background? How did you come to Rebuilding Together?
Yeah, so I grew up in Montgomery County, so
Okay.
elementary school through high school, so very local in terms of knowing the county itself, and then went to University of Maryland after that. Believe it or not, I went into consulting work for several years out of college, but there came a point where I met wonderful people. I learned a lot in the consulting work, but I kind of stepped back after a few years and I was like evaluating, is this what I want to be doing? And realizing that like we put so much time into the work that we do on a daily basis every week, how many hours we spend, and a lot of our effort, our emotional energy, because we care about the work that we do, right? And so where did I want to be putting that energy? And I realized that I really want to be putting that energy back into the community that raised me, and also, you know, having impact on a daily basis. So when I saw the opening at Rebuilding Together Montgomery County, I had applied because I thought, what better place to go back to than a local organization giving back to where I grew up.
That's fantastic. I think we're safe with our young people. People are telling us, oh, the young people don't know what they're doing, but I think they do very much so. And listening to you, I am convinced. So who's actually doing the repair work on the homes? Is it your staff, or are you contracting that out? Who's doing the work?
Yeah, so typically it's a combination of, we use both volunteers and we also use contractors. So I would say maybe about 10% of the work we do is through volunteers, and that can often be sometimes skilled volunteers too. We work with construction companies that are happy to help out with special repairs and things like that. But then on the flip side, our day-to-day we usually use is trusted local contractors. So we try to work with small local businesses, and we formed relationships over the years where they know who we are, they care about the mission, and that's the really cool part about all the people that we work with and the contractors that we work with, is they really care about what they're doing. So they care about each one of our clients that they go out to.
Are you involved with any of the repairs on homes? Have you gotten into it that way?
I don't typically swing a hammer, but our team is out on all the volunteer days. So we've had several hundred volunteers out in the past month for our national rebuilding weekend, which is the thing nationally for all affiliates throughout the country. And we did over 13 homes throughout the county with over 400 volunteers. And we're doing also other give back days all throughout this month as well. So I will be out and about. I will be swinging a hammer or painting or other items like that throughout the community. So that's usually I get involved in the volunteer days.
That's fantastic. Are you all able to help the people you serve with utilities services any kind of way in terms of like heating or water? Can they get any reduction in costs through what you do?
So we do have a program called through the Maryland Energy Administration that we're working with right now, where when we are able to do an HVAC replacement, we also do weatherization work, and we replace with a much more efficient HVAC, because typically the homeowners that we work with, their HVAC is 30 plus years old. So if it's still working, it's very inefficient, and we find that they have huge energy bills. So we are able to replace that and usually hopefully save them up to a couple hundred a month in energy bills alone, which can have a huge impact. And then on the broader sense, when we can, we connect them with programs for reduced utilities and other stuff like that when able to. And we try consistently to look through partners without the county who want to reach out and say like, hey, we can assist with homeowners and connect our homeowners to those resources, because more and more we don't just want to do the repairs and then leave, right? We want it to be more holistic. So we're constantly looking for resources that when we leave the home, we can also connect the homeowners with other resources that can continue to assist them and then bring them back into the community.
About how many people have you served, do you think? This is something great to have. So I would imagine loads of people are wanting to get your services.
Yeah, if we go all the way back from the history, I think we're a decent amount, over 3,000 families served throughout the county, and we've galvanized over 50,000 volunteers at this point, and put almost $29 million back in repairs through households throughout the county over the length of our service.
That is fantastic. So if someone has gotten help from you before and they still have some things that need to be repaired, can they be considered again that you can go back to their homes and do more?
Yeah, so they
Okay.
can be considered again. How we do it right now to kind of make it fair and make sure we spread the resources throughout the county for everyone who needs our services is once they've been served, there's a 2-year waiting period after
Okay.
that. So we try to hit all the most critical items we can, but if we're not able to or new things pop up in the meantime, they can reapply again in 2 years' time to be served.
That's great. So do you have a success story that touches your heart from all this work you've done over the years?
I definitely have many success stories and many that have touched my heart, but one that's particularly close to myself is, we'll call her Mrs. S. But she was a homeowner that I had done the assessment for and talked with for a long time, where she'd reached out to us for help because she was getting older, upper 60s, lower 70s at the time, and she was also taking care of her partner, who was unfortunately diabetic. He was going blind. He had lost a leg to it, and he had to go out to dialysis as well. And she had to take care of him as well as taking care of herself. And she was a retired school teacher as well. So, you know, she had worked hard throughout her whole lifetime, but the repairs, as we sometimes unfortunately see, started stacking up. So she ended up having flooding in her entire basement.
Oh, wow.
That happened, which we actually were able to stop all the flooding in the basement and redo the basement for her with volunteers. And then the big thing that I was really, really happy to get put in for her is we were able to put in a huge 40-foot ramp for her.
Oh, nice.
Because she had to take out her partner in a wheelchair to dialysis multiple times a week. And when I had met her, she unfortunately had thrown out her back because she had to haul him up and down the stairs of her home.
Wow.
5 steps getting in and out. But they're pretty high, and for an older woman trying to haul a grown man out to dialysis back and forth, but she would do it every week to make sure that he was okay, but that's not a situation we wanted to see, so I'm very happy we were able to remedy it.
That's fantastic. Mac, thank you so much for being here and for the work you're doing to help people rebuild their homes, their lives, their communities. I can tell that you really enjoy what you're doing, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'll be joined by Chloe Bernardi, Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Montgomery County. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Oftentimes, veterans return home, many of whom have a service-related disability, unable to find affordable and accessible housing that can meet their needs. Rebuilding Together is a national nonprofit dedicated to repairing homes, revitalizing communities, and rebuilding lives. Our vision is for every person to have a safe and healthy home and community, especially our nation's veterans.
So right now we're helping out one of our clients. He's an 82-year-old Army veteran, and we identified him as a veteran in need. You know, we see so many people who have served our country and through life circumstances are not able to maintain their home.
I've lived here since I got out of the Army, so I've been here a long time. I tell you, when I got their call the other day, it was really something else to see all the things that they were doing for me.
Welcome back. I'm Cheryl Hawkins. You're watching Solutions, the series that highlights the great work that nonprofits do in our communities. On this episode, we are highlighting the work of Rebuilding Together Montgomery County. And in this segment, my guest is Chloe Bernardi, Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Montgomery County. Welcome to Solutions, Chloe.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for being here. So tell me a little bit about you. You've worked with several nonprofits in your career. How did you come to Rebuilding Together, MC?
So I've been in the nonprofit world for 25 plus years. Wow. My background is social work. I have a master's in social work. I primarily was in child welfare up until recently. I started to get to a point in my career where I wanted to expand knowledge, just shift gears a little bit. I grew up in Montgomery County, left for a while, but came back. My daughter's at MCPS school, so just really embedded in the county. this became available. I also happen to love home repair and doing my own home repairs. So the opportunity to be an executive director of a nonprofit and wear my tool belt to work and carry a hammer is like the done deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
So what are your responsibilities as the executive director?
So we have a relatively small team. We have 7 employees and 3 AmeriCorps staff. So I am responsible for the general oversight of everything, but we have great people in place, so that makes that fairly easy. But ensuring that we have diversified funding, that we're networking, building relationships, getting the word out about what we do, grant writing, creating a vision for the future, figuring out what's next and how we can build and be more impactful in the community.
Mm-hmm. So are any of your staff involved with doing the repairs? I heard you say you swing a hammer.
I have to like keep myself off of all the projects because I'm inclined to go, and then it's really the volunteers and the corporations that are there to do it. So there's a lot of behind the scenes, weeks of prep when we have a big project. We have something happening on Friday, and that's been actually months of prepping for it. And then we will set up, break down, assist as needed. There's times when you can get involved, but typically we're just kind of overseeing the process and making sure everything runs smoothly.
So what was a challenge for you when you came into this position as executive director from an organization that's working with people in terms of care, and now you're working with homes and things like that? What was different for you for getting really into this job?
Yeah, it's a good question. Learning just new acronyms and new systems and the ins and outs of the county, that was the learning curve, but it's still working with people. It's still, I see the same mental health. You see, people suffering and not being able to reach the resources that they need. So it's still the same focus. It's just you're going in based on a home repair, and then when you're in there, you realize that there's so much more that needs to be done.
Wow.
You actually see the process happen in a day. So you go in to fix something, and you leave and it's fixed, and that's really rewarding to see the beginning and end happen. But it's people experiencing similar things to what I saw in child welfare.
I was going to say that must be challenging for you to do the repairs and then can't walk away because you see something else.
That's part of my vision, is that we don't want to just walk away. I mean, that is our mission, to go in and do the home repairs. But what we're seeing more and more is that we work with the aging population who have limited resources. They're isolated. They don't know where to access things in the county. There's a lot of people being scammed by people that pretend to be contractors and will take all the money that they have. So what we're aiming to do moving forward is making sure that if we go in and see that there's mental health issues, there's a lot of hoarding, that we're connecting them with either other nonprofits or resources in the county. Because I don't want to go in and fix a sink and leave, and if they can't maintain that, then we're going to be back out in 2 years. So that's really important, and that's a process, and that's building relationships in the community with other nonprofits in the county to make sure that these people are not isolated and suffering alone.
Yeah. Are a lot of the people living alone?
We do, yes. We see, a lot of people are at that point in their life alone. And that just, furthers the isolation and being removed.
Yeah. So I'm a homeowner, and I know that repairs can cost a lot, sometimes a whole lot. So how are you funded? How are you getting your funds to help make these repairs for others?
So we have a lot of different grants that we get through state, county. They're very specific to what you can do with the money, so it's very restricted. So we may have a grant to do modifications, so that supports the accessibility, going in and putting handrails or ramps. We may have a grant that's specific to energy, so we might be do something specific to that with that grant. So every project has to be determined what grant it comes out of and then tracked that way. We have a couple fundraisers 2 times a year in May and in the fall. We have personal donations, corporation give back days, but the one piece that's always a struggle is getting the unrestricted and fund so that we can build capacity.
So you do what's called a National Rebuilding Day. Tell me about that. How does that work?
So that was, I think Matt alluded to it, it started as the Christmas in April. So that is, again, probably 6+ months of planning into a Friday, Saturday, Sunday project of 400 people and 15 different projects and all over the county. So we're finding homeowners and nonprofits that need the repairs, matching them with the group of volunteers based on what they're interested in doing and what their skill set is, and then facilitating the whole weekend and making sure everything runs smoothly. So when we were literally driving all around the county, stopping at different projects just to make sure that everything was working the way it was supposed to.
So these are projects that can be done in a day? Is that
Some of them they needed the weekend before and you'd have to come back the weekend after, but some of it, like yard clean out, that hadn't been done in years and years and years, so they're able to do that. It rained on Saturday, but you would have thought the sun was shining and it was 80 degrees because people worked through it. It
Wow.
didn't faze them. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very touching.
So do you have success stories that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I was touched right away coming in, and I'm fairly new to this position, but just seeing the before and after pictures of some of the bathrooms that are in complete disrepair, people in wheelchairs that can't get into their shower because there's a lip, so they need that modification. So people who haven't showered, holes in bathrooms. This past Monday, this one was also left a, just incredible what we're able to do and what someone has had to live with. They had a hole in the roof that had been there for years. And so it's a grandparents with their son and the 2 grandkids. So really the grandparents taking care of everything. There was a hole in the roof. This is in Gaithersburg. And so they don't have, the money to fix the roof. So they would just put buckets. And every time it would rain, take buckets out, take buckets out. So we were able to come and do the roof. So we were there on Monday, so not just their appreciation, but the neighbors coming by, so thankful that their neighbor was getting help. It's giving me the chills just talking about it because it's not possible otherwise.
Right.
And they just would have, and then eventually that roof is going to fall in, and
Yes.
that's how that damage furthers, and then it's you can't, it's unrepairable.
And so how did you learn about that family?
So we have a specific grant through Gaithersburg, and they were in that area, and so they applied. And then we have, the people that were able to do the work. So again, pulling from the specific grants based on the needs.
Right, and you help veterans too.
We do.
So how do you find them?
So that has been a challenge for us. We do, like Matt said, a lot of outreach, but with the veteran population, it's oftentimes hard to get them to ask for help or accept help. So what we find is it's more effective when one veteran is sharing the information maybe with their neighbor who's a veteran, and they're more willing to come forward. I think with that population, there's a sense of pride, not wanting to ask for help. Even with our aging population, it's you're losing a sense of independence, so asking for help can be difficult. I think we see it even more so with the veteran population. So we're really trying to get the word out in that area.
Yeah. Do you have to worry about liability issues, like when you do that National Day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
Those are the things that keep us up at night. So we are hyper vigilant about safety. At every point during the process, we're considering what safety issues we need to look into. How do we prevent them? How do we make sure folks are relatively trained? There's liability waivers. We explain it when we're meeting with them. They have on wristbands, so we know that they've gotten the training.
Okay.
We have, they put on tape on the front and the back of their shirt, so in case we need to yell their name from behind because something's falling, we know
Get
their
out of the way.
name. So we're very careful and aware of what could happen. Luckily, things have run smoothly, but I think it's because we put that much effort into making sure that everybody's safe.
Great.
And also managing people that don't have the skill set to do, complicated
Right.
repairs, then we make sure
They
they're
don't.
painted. Right. They get a
Exactly.
paintbrush, so.
So what's your vision for the organization? Where would you like it to go?
Yeah, I mean, I would love, so right now I think we have 75 people on our waiting list. I don't want a waiting list, and I want to be able to answer the call and say yes, and then have a short time frame to be able to go out and help them. When we are taking applications, sometimes it's 4 to 6 months. So the goal is to help every person that calls that has, the need for help. And that is building capacity, so that's hiring more staff. We can only do so much with 7 people. And then, as I mentioned before, really creating that holistic approach and not just doing the home repair, but making sure that their well-being and safety is, being addressed in every component of their life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Chloe, thank you so much for being here. I love what you all do.
Thank you.
It's great, rebuilding people and their community. That's fantastic.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Again, I'd like to thank my guests, Chloe Bernardi, Executive Director, and Matthew Saunders, Director of Program Services at Rebuilding Together Montgomery County, for being my guests on this episode of Solutions. If you'd like more information about Rebuilding Together Montgomery County, you can visit their website at rebuildingtogethermc.org, or you can call them at 301-947-9400. I'm Cheryl Hawkins. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more Solutions.